After the French defeated the troops of the Holy Roman Empire at the Battle of Allerheim, along with the smoke, hatred began to fade, giving way to chivalric virtues. The victors paid funeral honors to those who, hours before, sought their destruction, an act of nobility that currently seems incomprehensible in countries like our El Salvador. Today we will talk about the Battle of Allerheim, from which we can draw useful lessons for our country that was also at war and whose wounds some would like to see never heal. But not without first reminding you to write to my WhatsApp and to follow me on my social networks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, and on my YouTube channel. 100 years before this battle, since 1547, religious differences aroused political animosity such that Europe became the field of innumerable wars. The last of these conflagrations was the 30 Years' War, in which the Battle of Allerheim took place. Many great warriors on both sides gave their lives in that war, falling in battle or by betrayal. Captains like Tilly, Gustav Adolf von Mansfeld-Wallenstein wrote legendary war stories fascinating through the centuries. One of these great warriors was Baron Franz von Mercy, who fell in the Battle of Allerheim, one of the bloodiest of the war, almost a draw, with 8,000 casualties on both sides. His enemy, his victorious Louis II of Bourbon, Prince of Condé, the Great Condé, raised for his adversary on the battlefield a mortuary monument whose epitaph engraved in stone reads, "Staviator, eroem calcas." Stop, traveler, you step on the ashes of a hero. That stupendous magnanimity towards a fallen enemy is unthinkable in our country, in which it is hatred that does not rest. And let us not lose sight of the fact that in any war, collateral damage to the population cannot be avoided. Thus, Franz von Mercy was no exception. However, the Prince of Condé did not take his hatred. On the contrary, he put aside grievances, healed the wounds by giving him due honors, and immediately and exemplary deposed his hatreds. In El Salvador, hatred is a bonfire that has a citizenship card, and we are persuaded to keep it cracking. Marxists and their NGOs insist on punishing the military for acts that they exaggerate, take out of context, or even make up. The most grotesque are the judicial cruelty against the failed events of Mozote and that of the Jesuit case. Marxism, with its dialectic of class struggle, sees in the Salvadoran Army a permanent enemy, and that has always made peace and coexistence precarious and difficult, aggravating the evils of the past armed conflict. This consideration of the Marxist dinosaurs, which extends to times of peace, is a twisted and perverse logic obsessively followed by groups that hold rancor and rage as a solution, such as Cristosal or Las Mélidas and others. They leave aside the constitutional obligation of our army to defend the homeland. They despise and vituperate the Supreme Court of Justice, the Attorney General's office, and the entire judiciary, but they want to exploit them to perpetuate their revenge and petty phobias. Let's make friends recall that the Attorney General's office, the Supreme Court of Justice, and the judiciary do not allow themselves to be manipulated and set their sights on the high national interests. Let's wake up to justice and law represented in them. There is no more forceful way to respond to anti-country aggression than to put the final epitaph by closing, once and for all, those tragic chapters of our history. It is impossible not to see the harsh consequences of promoting a witch hunt against only one side of the conflict, when we all know that the FMLN bore by far the worst part in the guilt, responsible for so many crimes and murders that for the sake of healthy coexistence have gone unpunished and almost forgotten. In all times and latitudes, every human explosion that generates confrontation between the same society necessarily entails sad events and powerful hatreds. But, as that occurred in the Battle of Allerheim, in which the great Condé gave that brilliant and moving example, it is clear that the spirit can dominate and defeat overflowing passions. It is time to deny stubbornness and promote solidarity and union for God and liberty. We must make a general effort so that our descendants will not be in danger of a new debacle. Tempering ill will, changing attitudes, is the only way now.